Marcus Everett wiped sweat from his brow as he macheted through the dense Amazon undergrowth. 3 months into his research expedition, and the botanist had already cataloged 7 previously undocumented plant species, potentially revolutionary for pharmaceutical research. His satellite phone buzzed with another ignored message from the university. They wanted him back, but the jungle had more secrets to share. The air crackled with electricity. Marcus glanced upward, expecting an afternoon storm, but the sky above the canopy remained clear despite the strange metallic tang in the air. His instruments flickered. "What the hell?" he muttered, checking his compass as the needle spun wildly. The jungle fell silent. No birds, no insects. Just unnatural stillness. Then came the screams, not human, not animal, something else entirely. Marcus hesitated only briefly before rushing toward the sound. Breaking through a wall of vegetation, he froze at the edge of a newly formed clearing. Steam rose from scorched earth where something massive had carved a path through the canopy. In the center lay a twisted mass of silver-blue metal unlike any alloy he'd ever seen. But what seized his attention were the creatures surrounding a fallen figure, 6-limbed predators resembling jaguars but with reptilian features. They stalked toward the humanoid form crumpled beside the wreckage. Without thinking, Marcus fired his emergency flare. The bright red streak scattered the creatures temporarily. He charged forward, machete in hand, positioning himself between the predators and the fallen figure. One beast lunged, and Marcus swung, catching it across the snout. The creature retreated with a hiss. When the predators finally slunk away, Marcus turned to the injured visitor. His breath caught. She appeared almost human, but not quite. Her skin had a faint opalescent sheen, and her features were delicately angular. Most striking were her eyes, large, almond-shaped, with irises that shifted between violet and silver. Her hair flowed like liquid platinum to her shoulders. She wore a fitted bodysuit of material that seemed to adjust to her movements, now torn and stained with a fluid that resembled blood but shimmered with bioluminescence. "Can you understand me?" Marcus asked, kneeling beside her. She responded with melodic sounds from a language he couldn't comprehend. When she tried to stand, she collapsed from a deep gash along her thigh. "I need to get you somewhere safe," he said, gesturing to the jungle around them. "Those things might come back." Understanding crossed her face. She nodded, pointing to the wreckage and speaking urgently. "We'll come back for whatever you need," Marcus promised, though he knew she couldn't understand him. "You're bleeding too much." Without warning, she pressed her palm to his forehead. Images flooded his mind. Stars, planets, a magnificent vessel traveling through space, then fire, alarms, emergency protocols. She withdrew her hand, leaving Marcus gasping. "Alara," she said, touching her chest. "Alara." "Marcus," he responded, touching his own chest. "I'll help you, Alara." Decision made, Marcus gathered her into his arms. She weighed less than he expected, despite being nearly as tall as himself. His research cabin was an hour's hike away, challenging with an injured alien, but possible. As he carried her, he noticed how she studied his face with equal parts fear and fascination. At the cabin, Marcus laid her on his cot and gathered his first aid supplies. The wound looked cauterized at the edges, but still leaked the shimmering fluid. When he approached with antiseptic, Alara gently pushed his hand away. From a concealed pocket in her suit, she withdrew a small device that emitted a soft blue light. She placed it over her wound, and Marcus watched in amazement as the tissue began to knit together. "That's incredible," he whispered. Alara smiled wearily, the universal expression bridging their worlds. As night fell over the jungle, Marcus realized his life's work had suddenly changed. No longer was he merely documenting new plant species. He had made first contact with an entirely new form of life. And something in her silver-violet eyes told him this was just the beginning. 3 days passed in a delicate dance of miscommunication and breakthrough. Marcus created a makeshift pictogram system on the cabin walls, while Alara sketched star maps and complex mathematics that left him in awe. By the 4th morning, something extraordinary happened. Marcus awoke to find Alara hovering her hand over his tablet, her eyes closed in concentration. The screen flickered between languages before settling on English, code rewriting itself before his eyes. "I have adapted your primitive translation algorithm," she said, her voice melodic despite the digital delivery. "It is incomplete, but functional." Marcus nearly dropped his coffee. "You learned our language overnight?" "Not precisely." Alara's fingers danced across the screen. The luminari possess neurological structures that allow for accelerated pattern recognition. Your computer helped bridge the gap. Over breakfast, Alara fascinated by the simple pleasure of fresh fruit. She explained her origins. The luminari were a space-faring civilization from a star system Marcus knew as Epsilon Eridani, though they called it something unpronounceable. I am what you might call a diplomatic pathfinder, she explained. My mission was to establish first contact protocols before our formal delegation arrives. And instead you crashed in my jungle, Marcus said with a smile. A navigation error compounded by an unexpected solar flare. Her expression darkened. My beacon was damaged. Without it, my people cannot locate Earth precisely. As days turned to weeks, their communication deepened beyond words. Marcus taught Alara about Earth's ecosystems, while she shared glimpses of technologies centuries beyond human understanding. Each night, they watched the stars from his cabin's small porch, her slender finger tracing constellations with names he couldn't pronounce. One evening, as twilight painted the jungle in golden hues, Alara's hand found his. Her touch sent a gentle current across his skin. Your species fascinates me, she said softly. You are so physically limited, yet emotionally. She searched for the word. Boundless. Is that a compliment? Marcus asked, suddenly aware of how close they sat. The luminari evolved beyond many emotional attachments, she explained. We consider them inefficient, yet. Her eyes, now shifting to deep violet in the fading light, met his. I find myself experiencing unfamiliar sensations in your presence. Marcus felt his heartbeat quicken, such as acceleration of cardiovascular rhythm, heightened skin sensitivity. Her fingers intertwined with his. A persistent desire for proximity. We call that attraction, he said quietly. An inadequate term for the complexity, she whispered, leaning closer. Their first kiss was tentative, a brief meeting of worlds colliding. Her lips held an electric tingle that made his hair stand on end. When they parted, her skin glowed faintly from within, bioluminescent patterns tracing across her cheekbones. That was, Marcus began. Biochemically improbable, Alara finished, then unexpectedly smiled. Yet I wish to try again. Their second kiss lingered longer, her hand cupping his face with extraordinary gentleness, as though he were made of fragile glass rather than the reverse. Later that night, Alara revealed the true purpose of her mission, projecting holographic displays from her partially repaired equipment. Earth exists at a cosmic crossroads, she explained, showing gravitational waves converging. In 16 Earth months, your planet will encounter a quantum filament, invisible, but catastrophic to developing technological worlds. Like an extinction event? Marcus asked, studying the projection. Without intervention. The luminari have encountered this phenomenon before and developed deflection technologies. Her eyes held his. This is why first contact was accelerated. We need to establish trust quickly. And if I hadn't found you? Alara's expression grew solemn. Then your civilization would have approximately 48 more generations before collapse. She touched his hand. Now there is hope, but I must repair my beacon. Marcus nodded, determination replacing shock. Then we need to retrieve whatever survived from your craft. As they prepared for tomorrow's expedition to the crash site, the night wrapped around them. Marcus found himself watching Alara as she calibrated equipment, her movements precise and graceful. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of more than research or discovery. He felt the weight of worlds connecting through their unlikely bond. And in the darkness outside, unseen by either of them, the first glint of artificial light moved through the jungle toward the cabin. Dawn broke with the warning calls of disturbed monkeys. Marcus tensed, recognizing the unnatural pattern of their alarm. Someone was approaching, methodically, deliberately. We need to move, he whispered, pulling Alara from sleep. We're not alone. She rose instantly, gathering her equipment with practiced efficiency. Military personnel? Likely. Your crash wouldn't have gone unnoticed by satellites. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack, water, compass, medical supplies, and the tablet containing their translation program. There's a hidden trail behind the cabin. They slipped out just as the first black-clad figures emerged from the treeline. Through dense foliage, Marcus glimpsed tactical gear, advanced weapons, and the unmistakable earpieces of coordinated operatives. Not local military, something more specialized. U.S. Special Forces, he murmured. Or worse, private contractors. They pushed deeper into the jungle, Marcus relying on 3 months of exploration to navigate the treacherous terrain. Alara moved with surprising agility despite her alien physiology, occasionally correcting their course using what must have been internal navigation systems. The crash site is 2 kilometers northwest, she said, consulting a holographic display projected from her wrist device. Parts of my secondary beacon survived. And what happens when you activate it? Marcus asked, helping her over a fallen trunk. My ship's distress signal will reach the Luminary Advance Fleet, she explained. They maintain position at the edge of your solar system, awaiting confirmation before approach. Their conversation halted at the sound of pursuit, quiet but unmistakable. As they crouched behind massive buttress roots, Marcus felt Alara's hand slip into his, a gesture now familiar yet still electrifying. If they capture me, she whispered, your government will study my biology, my technology. They will not understand the urgency of my mission, and Earth will remain unprotected. They won't catch us, Marcus promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. The jungle's humidity clung to them as they pressed onward, the distance between them and their pursuers gradually widening. By midday, they reached a small clearing where a stream cut through the dense vegetation. They paused to drink and rest. Alara's skin had taken on a silvery sheen that hadn't been present before, almost reflective in the dappled sunlight. You're changing, Marcus observed, touching her cheek gently. My biology adapts to environmental conditions, she explained. And, she hesitated, to compatible genetic material. Compatible? Marcus's eyebrow raised questioningly. Alara's eyes shifted to a deep, intense violet. The Luminary evolved with adaptive cellular structures. When she searched for the right words, formed connections with other species, a sympathetic resonance occurs. You're adapting to me? He asked, both alarmed and fascinated. And you to me, though more subtly. She traced a finger along his forearm, where nearly imperceptible iridescent patterns had formed beneath his skin. Our molecular exchange during physical contact has consequences beyond the psychological. The revelation should have disturbed him, but instead, Marcus felt a profound connection deepening between them. That night, as they made camp in the hollow of a massive fallen kapok tree, their bodies sought each other in the darkness. Her touch left trails of gentle luminescence across his skin, her alien biology manifesting in ways both strange and beautiful. Their intimacy transcended physical barriers as Alara established a deeper connection, opening her consciousness to his. Marcus glimpsed fragments of her memories, crystalline cities suspended between azure moons, the collective knowledge of a civilization spanning thousands of years, and the devastating power of the quantum filament that threatened Earth. Now you understand, she whispered against his neck, her voice containing harmonics impossible for human vocal cords. Your world stands at a precipice. And you're its only hope, he finished, holding her closer. Not I alone. Her eyes met his in the darkness. What exists between us? This bridge between worlds. This is the key. The morning brought renewed urgency. As they approached the crash site, evidence of military presence became impossible to ignore. Equipment had been removed, samples taken. Overhead, the distant hum of surveillance drones echoed through the canopy. They're cataloging everything, Marcus said grimly. Looking for you. Alara knelt beside a section of wreckage partially buried in mud. Her fingers danced across nearly invisible seams until a compartment revealed itself. Inside lay a crystalline device no larger than a human hand, pulsing with inner light. The secondary beacon, she said, relief evident in her voice. Damaged but reparable. As she secured it within her bodysuit, the sound of approaching helicopters shattered the jungle's cacophony. Their time had run out. They found us, Marcus said, grabbing her hand. Run. The helicopter's searchlight cut swaths through the canopy as Marcus and Alara fled deeper into uncharted jungle. Rain had begun to fall, turning the forest floor treacherous. Twice they nearly fell into ravines concealed by undergrowth, saved only by Alara's enhanced senses. There's a cave system ahead, Marcus gasped, recalling the limestone formations he'd charted months earlier. We can lose them underground. They slid down a muddy embankment toward the moss-covered entrance. Behind them, voices called through the rain, disciplined teams closing in with tactical precision. Inside the cave, darkness enveloped them completely until Alara's skin began to emit a soft blue glow, illuminating limestone formations that had never seen artificial light. Bioluminescence, she explained, noting Marcus's fascination. A defense mechanism activated by stress. The glow highlighted the exhaustion on her face. They navigated deeper into the labyrinth, Marcus marking their path with botanical dye. When they reached a chamber with a small freshwater pool, they collapsed beside it, muscles trembling from exertion. "We've bought ourselves hours at most," Marcus said, filling their water containers. "They'll have thermal imaging, tracking equipment." Alara nodded solemnly, examining the beacon. "The damage is significant. I can repair the primary functions, but—" She hesitated. "The process will drain my biological reserves. I'll be vulnerable afterward." "How vulnerable?" "Unconscious, possibly for days." Her eyes met his. "You would need to protect me." Marcus brushed his fingers against her cheek. "Then we'd better find somewhere more defensible." "There is another option," Alara said softly, her voice almost melodic in the echoing chamber. "A way to accelerate both the repair and my recovery." "Tell me." "A complete neural synchronization." Her eyes shifted to deep indigo, a color he'd come to recognize as vulnerability. "Among my people, it is reserved for lifelong bonds. The exchange is profound." "Like a marriage?" Marcus asked. "More irreversible." She took his hands. "Our consciousness would briefly merge. You would carry portions of my memory, my knowledge, and I yours. Our physiologies would become permanently linked." The implication staggered him. "Would I still be me?" "Entirely yourself, but with awareness beyond human experience." She squeezed his hands. "It would also allow me to complete the beacon repair, using your biological energy as supplement." Outside, distant voices echoed through the cave system. Their pursuers had found the entrance. "Will it hurt?" Marcus asked. Alara's laugh was like crystal chimes. Beyond description, yet not as pain. She touched his temple. "But the alternative is capture. If you consent, we must begin immediately." Marcus swallowed hard, then nodded. "I consent." Alara guided him to sit facing her beside the pool. She removed her communication device and placed it between them, connecting it to the beacon. Then she pressed her palms to his temples, her fingers cool against his skin. "Open your mind to me," she whispered. "Do not resist what comes." The initial contact was gentle, like standing at the edge of an ocean. Then, without warning, Marcus plunged into an endless sea of stars. Consciousness expanded beyond his body, beyond the cave, beyond Earth itself. He experienced the birth of suns, the death of ancient worlds. He saw the luminary homeworld, 3 moons suspended above crystalline cities that danced with colors beyond human perception. He witnessed Alara's life, her training as a pathfinder, her selection for the Earth mission, the affection of her familial cluster who celebrated her departure with songs that lasted days. He felt the quantum filament as the luminary understood it. Not merely a natural disaster, but a tear in reality itself, a cosmic wound that bled destruction across galaxies. And she saw him, his childhood in Montana, his father's disapproval when he chose botany over business, his isolation in academia, his yearning to understand life in all its forms, his loneliness. Their memories swirled together like watercolors bleeding on canvas. Physical sensation returned gradually, the cool stone beneath them, the humidity of the cave, their foreheads pressed together as tears streamed down both their faces. Between them, the beacon now pulsed with renewed energy, its crystal components realigned and functioning. "Marcus," Alara whispered, her voice simultaneously inside his mind and outside it. "I see all of you." "And I you," he responded, understanding flowing between them without words. The synchronization had changed them both. Marcus could sense electromagnetic fields now, could perceive ultraviolet patterns in the cave walls. Alara moved with new purpose, her body strengthened by the resilience she'd absorbed from his human physiology. As they helped each other stand, a new understanding crystallized between them. The beacon would summon the luminary fleet, but their synchronized bond had created something unprecedented, a bridge between species that could reshape the future contact between their civilizations. When they emerged from the deepest chamber, Marcus led them confidently through passages he'd never seen before, following instincts that weren't entirely his own. Above them, the military search continued, but they moved with shared purpose toward a destination hidden in the memories Alara had given him. "There's another craft," Marcus said with certainty. "A secondary vessel, concealed beyond the crash site." "Yes," Alara confirmed. "Emergency protocol. I couldn't reveal it until I was certain of your intentions. And now," her smile contained multitudes. "Now we are beyond deception. We must reach it before dawn." They pressed forward through the darkness, 2 beings forever changed, carrying Earth's salvation and the beacon that would summon the stars themselves. Dawn broke over the ancient temple ruins that concealed Ilara's secondary craft. Unlike the crashed escape pod, this vessel remained intact. A sleek, teardrop-shaped ship barely larger than a small boat, its surface rippling with colors that mirrored the surrounding jungle. Marcus stood transfixed as Ilara placed her palm against its hull, which liquefied at her touch to reveal an entrance. "The Luminari build our ships to commune with their environments," she explained, beckoning him inside. Living technology. The interior defied its external dimensions, a marvel of space efficiency. At the center stood a crystalline console similar to, but far more elaborate than, the communication device Ilara had salvaged. "We have perhaps 20 minutes before they find us," Marcus warned, glancing nervously through the ruins. The distant sound of helicopter rotors confirmed his fears. Ilara worked quickly, her fingers dancing across symbols that activated in response to her touch. The beacon must be precisely calibrated. A single error could redirect the Luminari fleet away from Earth's system entirely. "And then we'd face the stellar flare alone," Marcus finished grimly. She paused, turning to him with eyes that shifted now between deep indigo and silver. "Marcus, once the beacon activates, I must leave. My people will extract me before your military can interfere." Her voice softened. "But the choice before you is significant." Marcus felt his heart stutter. "What choice?" "You could come with me," she said simply, the words hanging between them like stars. "The Luminari would welcome you as they will eventually welcome all humanity. You would be the first, a bridge between our worlds." Outside, the helicopter sounds grew louder. Boots crunched on stone as soldiers approached the ruins. Marcus's mind raced. Everything he knew, his research, his world, weighed against the unknown. Against her. "If I stay, I cannot return," she whispered. "Not for many years. The Luminari Council must carefully manage first contact protocols. Individual relationships are discouraged until formal diplomatic channels are established." The temple trembled as vehicles pulled up outside. Orders were shouted. They had minutes, perhaps seconds. "Will Earth be safe if I go with you? Will my being there help ensure the Luminari protect my planet?" Marcus asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Your presence would be powerful testimony. The Council values direct experience." She reached for him, palm against his cheek in the gesture that had become so familiar. "But I would never ask this of you for strategic reasons alone." Marcus covered her hand with his own. "Then why ask?" "Because in all my travels across 17 systems, I have never encountered a soul that resonates with mine as yours does." Her forehead pressed against his. "The universe is vast, Marcus. Finding connection across such distances defies all probability." A crash echoed through the ruins. The soldiers had breached the outer perimeter. 30 seconds to beacon activation, Ilara said, returning reluctantly to the console. Marcus watched her work, this extraordinary being who had fallen from the stars into his ordinary life. In her movements, he saw both alien grace and familiar determination, the perfect bridge between worlds. Just as he could be. 10 seconds, she announced, her fingers finalizing the sequence. Outside, flashlight beams swept across the temple walls. Voices called out as they discovered the ship. "Ilara," Marcus said, decision crystallizing like stars forming in the darkness of space. "I'm coming with you." Joy illuminated her features as the beacon pulsed to life, sending its signal racing across the cosmos. The console erupted in prismatic light that engulfed them both. Beyond the ship's hull, soldiers burst into the chamber, weapons raised, but too late. Energy signatures cascaded around the vessel as the extraction protocol initiated. Through the dissolving walls of the temple, Marcus caught one last glimpse of Earth's sky, the blue he had known all his life fading as new colors bloomed around them. "What happens now?" he asked, taking her hand as reality shifted. "Now," Ilara said, drawing him closer as their physical forms began to transfigure into pure energy. "We forge the path that others will follow. Together." Their lips met as the extraction completed, their kiss transcending species and stars, the first of countless exchanges between worlds that would follow in the centuries to come. In that moment, Marcus understood that love, like the cosmos itself, recognized no boundaries of form or origin. The ship vanished in a burst of light that swept across Earth's atmosphere, initiating the protective field that would shield humanity from the coming stellar flare. Soldiers were left staring at empty space where two beings had stood moments before, unaware that they had witnessed not an ending, but humanity's first step into a greater universe. And somewhere among the stars, two souls from different worlds began their journey as the living bridge between civilizations, cosmic balance restored through the most universal force of all.